It's time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm your host, Jake Schaff, going over all of the biggest news and events from right here in Greater West Bloomfield and beyond. There have been some major government declarations recently, both on the state level with Governor Gretchen Whitmer's recent State of the State address and on the national level with President Donald Trump's joint session of Congress. Here to help break everything down and share some insight, we have State Representative Noah Arbit joining us right now on The Splash. Noah, good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Always love having you on the show. We got a lot to get into. Let's jump right into it. With Governor Gretchen Whitmer's recent town hall to the state, what have been your thoughts on that recent address?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I thought was really exciting to hear from Governor Whitmer's State of the State address was her focus on cutting red tape for development, for permitting, for licensure requirements, for making sure that if people have a skill that they acquired in Ohio or New York or California, if they want to move here to Michigan and be able to practice their skill or their trade, making sure that we have some reciprocity in our licensure requirements, not increasing red tape, but actually decreasing and cutting red tape for every sort of project that you can imagine here in Michigan. We know that it takes way too long to build a home here in Michigan and really across the country. And so if we want to incentivize development, if we want to incentivize, building the cities of the future and the economy of the future, then we really need to work on cutting down the cost and the time, which redounds to the cost of, how long it takes to build a home, build a commercial center or build, an energy facility and anything that really has economic value here in the state of Michigan. We need to really make sure that we are streamlining and making government more efficient.
Of course, that's always what we want to see. We want to make things easier for everybody. And what impact do you see a lot of these declarations having on Oakland County and possibly Greater West Bloomfield?
Well, I think ultimately, if we're able to reduce the amount of permitting and the time that it takes to build a home, ultimately, or an apartment building, any type of housing, it's going to lower the cost of housing, which we know right now is extremely high, and we are statewide in a housing crisis, even here in Oakland County. In Greater West Bloomfield, we know that one of the things that West Bloomfield Township has identified is a missing middle issue, which means that we've got large homes, the mansions, and then we've got sort of the small homes that are relatively inexpensive, but we don't have sort of the missing middle properties, which can appeal to people of the middle class, really, right? And so that's something that I think the township is working on with the new master plan. It's how can we get more diverse housing stock into Greater West Bloomfield. And I know Commerce has been working on that, and certainly Keego Harbor has been working on that as well with their, Cass Lake business corridor area. So, a lot of exciting work going on in the Greater West Bloomfield area. A lot of these, statewide efforts that we're looking at, I think will only strengthen and benefit these local efforts.
I think so, too. It's going to make such a great impact here in Greater West Bloomfield. And I want to know how people like you, Noah, and other state representatives and people on that level are going to be helping Governor Whitmer with achieving some of these goals.
Sure. Well, whether there needs to be legislative action taken to repeal some of these requirements or some of these, licensure requirements or, the red tape on permitting, all of that reform would happen legislatively. So we're looking for bipartisan action. And this is something I think that we can agree on, is something that is bipartisan, is, making sure that, if you want to start a business in the state of Michigan, you should be free to do so. If you want to build in the state of Michigan, you should be free to do so with sort of minimal sort of state involvement. Obviously we still need, to have, environmental reviews and things of that nature, but it's become, the pendulum has swung so far I think, in the opposite direction, where it's just too burdensome and too overwhelming that it actually disincentivizes development, disincentivizes someone to start a business, and we need to sort of bring it back to center a little bit more to make sure that we are doing what we need to be doing for the people of the state of Michigan. So I'm all ready. I'm gung ho about it, and I'm ready to go. So.
For those just joining us, we have Michigan State Representative Noah Arbit joining us on The Splash to talk about recent government news that's been taking place both on the state level as well as on the national level. Now, we've talked about Governor Gretchen Whitmer's State of the State address. Now we're going to talk about President Donald Trump's State of the Congress address, where he went into topics. He was talking about how he's going to be moving to slash the federal workforce, crack down on immigration, and, of course, imposing tariffs on America's biggest trading partners. And I want to ask you, Noah, what can you tell us about some of the economic impact that these tariffs have?
Well, I mean, I think it is ruinous, frankly, for the state of Michigan. I think, I am incredibly concerned by the fact that, we have a president who is right now focused on implementing bankrupting tariffs on our closest trading partners, which will do nothing other than increase the cost of goods, groceries, and gas, and incinerate Michiganders' pocketbooks, who is right now focused on selling out our national security to the highest bidder by siding with Russia, Iran, and North Korea against Ukraine and our NATO allies, and is right now focused on slashing Medicaid health care for low-income Michiganders, also that he can pay for massive tax cuts for billionaires and the ultra wealthy. So, I don't think that this is anything that is beneficial for the state of Michigan or for the people of greater West Bloomfield. Honestly, it is a stunning act of economic self-sabotage and engineered by the president to sort of satisfy his bizarre obsession with a failed 1800s trade policy. This is a trade war on the people of Michigan.
Very interesting insight. And Governor Gretchen Whitmer has expressed some concerns over these tariff increases as well, especially pertaining on the impact on Michigan's auto industry. What can you see for the impact for that industry?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, every indication is that the cost of cars will increase by $3,000 to $12,000 on every vehicle, making cars more expensive, out of reach for everyday Michiganders, and making our exports less competitive globally, plays right into the hands of Detroit's competitors. That's Germany, South Korea, Japan, even China as a growing auto manufacturer. So, I am incredibly concerned. I don't understand why someone who, proclaims to want to make America great again would seem to reach for the bluntest instrument that is going to do nothing other than tank our economy. I mean, we've seen the stock market. I haven't checked my 401k, and I don't advise other people to do so either, because all it's going to be is a shock. This is really quite grievous, quite ruinous, and is stunning economic mismanagement. I mean, this is not me speculating. This is basic economics. If we are tariffing Mexico and Canada to 25%, the $6.99 Blackberries going to Mexico are going to jump to $8.99 or $9.99 in no time. If we think it's hard to afford a car, just wait until Detroit's auto industry, which is really the backbone of our state and of our economy, takes another body blow, because auto parts and materials are going to become more expensive. Housing, as we recently talked about, the cost of lumber is going to increase, right? And our exports are going to be less competitive on a global market. I don't understand how any president who says he wants to look out for Michiganders' pocketbooks can take this step in good conscience, saying that it's going to make us freer, fairer, and more prosperous, when it's really going to do the opposite. So I urge Michiganders to speak out against this ruinous, nonsensical economic plan by the president, and push back and call their representatives and say, why are you supporting this? Why are you laying down and allowing the president to incinerate our pocketbooks?
Well, we're going to have to wait and see just how much of an impact these tariffs are going to have at the national level. Once again, for those just joining us, we have Michigan State Representative Noah Arbit talking about some of the big government news that's been taking place on the national and the state level. And you, Noah, you're going to be having some big events coming up yourself. You are going to be a part of the hate crime prevention town hall that's going to be taking place in May. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. Yes, I'm hosting a town hall in May, on May 7th, on hate crimes and extremism, really talking about the new law that I wrote and that we passed, the Michigan Hate Crime Act, and how that's going to impact our community, how we can all, I think, take on hate and extremism here in our own community, in our own lives, and this growing radicalization. How do we take steps to really reduce that harm in our own communities, and giving people, really concrete, actionable resources, knowledge, strategies to take action in their own backyard, in their own communities. I'm bringing in Attorney General Dana Nessel, who is our state's top prosecutor and has prosecuted hate crimes, as well as Dr. Cynthia Miller-Idris, who is a renowned author, scholar, and expert on radicalization and extremism. She runs a very pioneering research lab in Washington, D.C. That has received grants from the Department of Homeland Security and is recognized internationally as really taking a public health approach to radicalization and seeing how we can really ameliorate radicalization and the downstream effects of extremist violence. So I'm really, really excited about this event and really encourage everyone to come and learn. It's going to be a great learning opportunity.
Sounds like it is quite the lineup and such a great opportunity for everyone in the state of Michigan. Noah, we loved hearing about your thoughts on everything today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Splash Live.
Thanks for having me.
Powerful insights and important perspectives on the state level. We appreciate Noah Arbit for stopping by and for sharing his thoughts on all of this big government news that's been taking place as of late. The Orchard Lake St. Mary's boys basketball team continued their quest for another state title on Tuesday night with a chance to compete in the regional finals on Thursday. Civic Center TV's Tyler Kieft brings you the highlights that he saw firsthand last night.
The number one Eaglets, one step closer to repeating as D1 champs, took their stacked squad north to Rochester Adams for the regional semifinal against the Grand Blanc Bobcats. From the jump, it was a game of pace and finesse. Jaden Savory getting an early board and put back. St. Mary's strikes first. Shooting woes hit both teams as Orchard Lake took an early lead, but things would pick up for the Bobcats not long after with a pull-up J off iron and a putback by Emmanuel Cooley. Finally saw Grand Blanc get on the board. Not long after the Bobcats get it going on the perimeter, Kasten Sendry fires and fills a triple, but O-Lake's Sherrod Barnes puts on the Jets and answers back. Eaglets up 3 midway through the first. It would stay close and stay physical to the buzzer. Under 30 seconds to play in the opening frame, Trey McKenney kicks it to the corner, where it's a no-go for Barnes, but there's Luke Crichton on his pogo stick, up high and through nylon for the putback. Eaglets, after one, up 14-13. On to quarter number 2, where scoring was at a premium. Misses aplenty as the Eaglets and Bobcats were keen to run, and both teams hit a cold streak until this. Iron, board, long ball, and it's a football school too. Trey McKenney gets the catch and the lay-in. O-Lake strikes first, 16-13. A few possessions later, from a Michigan man to a Spartan dog, Jaden Savory gets gritty with the physical post shot. Orchard Lake goes up 8. But here come the Bobcats. Sendry goes yard to Cannon for the acrobatic lay-in and a foul. Just like that, Grand Blanc is back in this thing, 19-20 in favor of Orchard Lake. And it would stay close right to the buzzer. 6 seconds left. It's Emmanuel Cooley breaking ankles, launching a tray ball, and hitting a buzzer beater. We're all tied up at 24 at the break. On to the third quarter, and for Orchard Lake, the Beasts have awakened. They turn to 5-star senior Trey McKenney from deep for a pair of early threes while they're trading leads. Then some separation. Western Michigan-bound Sherrod Barnes hits a pull-up J, gets an outlet pass from McKenney, and gets to the charity stripe to extend the lead. But he's not done. Shortly after, Barnes pulls up from downtown Rochester and calls heat check. Eaglets expand their lead even further to 14. It would get no easier for Grand Blanc, punishing St. Mary's defense, limiting space and stopping shots. After 3, Orchard Lake is up 53-35. On to the fourth quarter, Sherrod Barnes kicks it off with a rip-up and a return to the Orchard Lake hoop. Then Trey McKenney gets a taste, and the Eaglets limit opportunities on defense to help themselves inflate the lead. Orchard Lake is up 20 points midway through the fourth, and they would not look back, getting the young fellas like Mateen Cleaves Jr. involved, as does sophomore Peyton Kemp, as he kicks it to Aiden Hanks. It's another victory for number 1. The St. Mary's faithful rejoice with a 71-41 rout in the regional semifinal. The Eaglets' repeat run continues in the regional finals on Thursday versus the 22-3 Waterford Mott. Tip-off at 7 p.m. We'll have you covered here on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Man, talk about a dominant performance. Tuesday's big win came on the backs of the upperclassmen, stepping up in the second half for an eventual 30-point run-away win. My goodness. Civic Center TV's Tyler Keefe spoke to one of the players of the game, none other than Mr. 1,000 points himself.
Tyler Keith with Civic Center TV alongside St. Mary's senior Sherrod Barnes. Impressive win tonight against Grand Blanc, but it was a very different start and a competitive start to what you saw in the districts against West Bloomfield. Going from physicality to a game of speed. How did that switch up affect you guys early on?
Definitely. They came to play. And we came out super slow. And we needed that test. To come out and just get that battle test, we can be ready for the next game, for sure.
And it was a slow first half as well. It ultimately came out to be tied at halftime, but you guys came back the second half with a head of steam, really shooting the lights off. What changed in those next 16 minutes?
For sure. We just trusted our work. We've been here before, and we have the maturity of the seniors on our team, and we just locked in. Coach got on us at halftime, and we used that as motivation to keep moving forward and lock in.
You're a defending champion team, and you got much of your senior leadership. They were on that championship team a year ago. How does that help to guide you through some of those tougher moments, especially now that you're deeper in playoff time?
Definitely. Like I said just a minute ago, the maturity is what we didn't have a couple of years ago, and we have that now, and we can lean on that more than ever. And just to know we have that in the age, and that helps us a lot.
Getting closer and closer to the championship pinnacle, a few more games away from the Breslin Center. How do you keep the younger guys who are playing huge roles on this team centered on game by game?
Definitely. Just us implementing practice, stay locked in. We got a week and a half left. We just got to stay locked in, stay the course, and finish the job.
Looking forward to Thursday. What's the next step that your team's got to take to win the region and get that much closer to the Breds?
Definitely. We can't come out slow anymore. That's the last game we're going to come out slow. And I take that on as a point guard for sure. That won't happen again, and that's going to be the step that we change.
Another prolific victory for the Eaglets. They're back here at Rochester Adams on Thursday night for the regional championship. Alongside Sherrod Barnes, I'm Tyler Keefe, Civic Center TV.
It has been a very big year for the Eaglets, winning the 2024 D1 Boys Basketball Championship, then following it up with a football title in the fall. Tyler Keefe spoke to one of the leaders behind St. Mary's recent success before Tuesday's game.
Tyler Keefe from Civic Center TV alongside Orchard Lake St. Mary's Athletic Director Jermaine Gonzalez. The Eaglets competing for back-to-back state titles in boys basketball. It's an exciting time to be leading the athletics department at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Multiple titles across multiple sports in the last calendar year.
Yeah, it's a great feeling and a blessing. Like I said, the boys been working hard. They compete, work hard all year round. I'm excited for them to see what they do with this next run.
And this boys team, having won last year, they're back again this year, #1 team in the state. Pretty exciting feeling as you get this far into the playoffs. How confident after last year's title are you in their ability to maybe even have an easier run back in 2025?
Well, we know nothing is ever easy. I think this group been playing together, or at least the core senior group has been playing together since their freshman year. So a lot of chemistry there, and now we got a lot of young talent surrounded those senior guys. So I just think it's a good group of guys, talent. Ty got them rolling right now, and I'm excited for what they can do.
It's been a really big year for Orchard Lake St. Mary's. You win the basketball title a year ago. Then this fall, you and the football team take home the title as well. What would it be like for your program to have back-to-back-to-back titles, from basketball to football to basketball again, on top of all the other success across the board in your sports?
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Like I said, it's hats off to like all the coaches we have. They do a great job with our student athletes and just supporting all our sporting programs. Obviously football, basketball, but you look at hockey right now. They're playing. They're playing for a semifinal. Ski team. They were in the state championship this year. So just a lot of our clubs has been performing and doing well. I just look forward to just keeping that momentum going.
In your opinion and in your design within your athletics department, what is the identity of Orchard Lake St. Mary's sports?
I mean, the identity don't change. It's God, family, St. Mary's. That's our motto, and we believe in that. And we know everything else is secondary. We just focus on those three things. So,
what would continued success for this basketball team and another trip back to the Breslin Center with a title coming back home mean to St. Mary's?
It'll mean a lot. I think going back to back in any sport is tough to do, and this team is very well deserving of it. The effort and all the hard work they put into it all year, it'll be great. Like I said, they think the seniors on this team won 4 districts. The 4 years they've been here, so they played a lot of basketball together, and we keep putting it together. I can see them going a long way and winning it all again this year. So.
The power of Orchard Lake St. Mary's sports continues to grow, possibly back-to-back titles in basketball and plenty other titles possibly on the way as well. Alongside Orchard Lake St. Mary's Athletics Director Jermaine Gonzalez, I'm Tyler Kieft, Civic Center TV.
The Eaglets will be returning to Rochester Adams on Thursday night for the regional finals, where they will be taking on Waterford Mott. Tip-off will be at 7 p.m. Stay tuned for more coverage right here on The Splash Live. We're just getting started. Lots of other big things to get into right after the break. We've talked about some basketball stars, but we're going to be getting into some wrestling stars right after this. Live, local, social, it's The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.
We'll be right back with The Splash Live. Bringing you stories and memories from West Bloomfield. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
1 in 4 Michigan homes has high levels of radon, a naturally occurring radioactive gas known to cause lung cancer. It doesn't matter where you live or what type of home you have. You won't even know it's there unless you test. So don't wait. Testing is cheap and easy. And if there's a problem, it's simple to fix. Visit michigan.gov/radon to learn more.
We took action. Will you?
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
I'm Gina Gregory, president of the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. I'm excited that Civic Center TV has reached 1 million views on YouTube. Congratulations. That's just terrific. We appreciate everything Civic Center does for the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society and the community. For us, they promote and highlight our events. It's awesome to have them available 24/7 on YouTube. I'm Gina Gregory and proud to be one in a million.
This is Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. On cable and the radio. On the web too, and on social media. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home. And now, back to The Splash, live.
Live, local, social. It's The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm your host, Jake Schaff, going over all of the biggest news and events from right here in Greater West Bloomfield. Here in Greater West Bloomfield, we highlight a lot of sports stars, whether they're in football, baseball, basketball, but one sport that we don't talk about enough is wrestling. And just recently, the West Bloomfield wrestling team was shining at the MHSAA Girls State Champions, with their athletes earning all-state honors. Such an incredible achievement. Here to talk about the wrestling team's recent success, we have West Bloomfield girls wrestling coach Andrew Nadir and one of their wrestlers, Tamari Kizanishvili, joining us right now on The Splash. Good morning to the both of you.
Good morning.
Really happy to have you on. Really interested in hearing about this wrestling season. Andrew, I'm going to start with you. What has been the big key to your team's recent success, would you say?
Well, Jake, the team just works really hard. They're committed. They're excited to come to practice. They're excited to learn. They put in the effort. So the results really don't come as a surprise, especially the girls. Tamari, just total rock star, has improved every year. And this year finally got on the podium, took third in the state, gave herself a great shot to win the state championship, along with our other girls. And it really just a testament to how hard they work in practice and the attitude and charisma they bring to the wrestling room every day to get better and have fun while they're doing it.
Of course, all great honors for each of the students, and you just highlighted that Tamari got a third-place medal at the championships. Congratulations to Tamari. And I want to ask you, what have you gained from being a part of the wrestling team so far?
I've definitely gained confidence and more, like, a bigger opportunities, especially as a girl doing guys sports. It really helped me improve, and, like, especially my self-confidence grew a lot bigger.
Well, that's great, and the success is already showing. Once again, congratulations for what you've accomplished. And I want to ask both of you, with how incredible this season has been so far, has there been a memorable moment or a specific incident that has stood out more so than anything else? Andrew, I'll start with you.
I don't know if there's one specific moment, but the culmination, especially for Tamari's career, she's a senior and finishing up high school, and Alexandria Hampton, also senior. I think the culmination of 4 years of hard work, going to the state tournament, achieving a goal, and putting your best foot forth. And like Tamari said, the confidence they've gained over the years, you see it not just in their wrestling, but how they carry themselves outside. And a testament, really, they're better people than they are wrestlers, and they're damn good wrestlers, so it's pretty awesome.
Tamari, what about you? What has been something that stood out this season more so than anything else?
Definitely the relationships between our teammates. I grew a lot with myself and with the girls. It definitely gave me self-confidence, not just that, but, like, self-growth. And I think it gave, like, a good impact in my life and how it grew and built relationship.
Awesome. And it's awesome to hear about what you guys have been able to accomplish, especially in a sport like wrestling. And I want to ask you guys, what is it about wrestling that makes it stand out from other sports, whether that be in the camaraderie, in the teamwork? What can you say about that?
I I think it could be like the difference in other sports. It has a definite physical impact and like a more strength wise, but with the girls, it shows that instead of just using strength, you can use technique, and it's very mind, sportsmanship, like, and it really shows what kind of person you are on the field.
Absolutely. Very well said. Andrew, same question.
Wrestling, especially for the ladies, it's really impressive. Tamari said earlier, what's traditionally been known as a guy's sport. It's really graceful to see the girls wrestle because not only are they really strong and powerful, but they implement such a higher level of technique oftentimes because they don't rely on their strength. And I think the best part is, and Tamari touched on, is the camaraderie, especially at our girls' team. You have Layla, Eva, Tamari, and Alexandria. Just a tight-knit group. They all push each other. They work hard together. And they're not afraid to compete, whether it's against the boys or the girls. And they're always eager to learn. And in wrestling, I think having that mindset of curiosity, eager to learn, and implement techniques, it's not just a brute force sport like a lot of people think. So it's very special in that regard.
Absolutely. It's that positive mindset that goes a long way. For those just joining us right now on The Splash, we have West Bloomfield girls wrestling coach Andrew Nadir and one of their wrestlers, Tamari Kizanishvili, joining us right now on The Splash to talk about the West Bloomfield girls wrestling team's recent success. And Andrew, I want to go to you for a second because working with these wrestlers and seeing them grow and seeing them increase their talents and their skills in the wrestling ring, how do you develop young wrestlers and help them improve over the course of the season?
Great question. One thing always when you get into high school, a lot of wrestlers have habits and whatnot. It's really just going back to your fundamentals, basics, teaching just the very, very small details early in the sport and then building from there. There's a big conditioning aspect as well. So, while Tamari spoke on the technique, which is huge, it doesn't, don't let that underscore how hard they work physically, conditioning wise, to be able to compete for a whole wrestling match. So the practices are challenging. They're technical, sometimes basic, sometimes complicated, but just constantly teaching, constantly learning. And what's great is you can learn from anyone in the sport. And so, there's times where Tamari does stuff and she'll teach me a move that I haven't seen that she maybe picked up at another gym. And so it's pretty awesome in that regard, that we have a lot of techniques we can focus on. We break them down. We see what works for everyone, and then we go give it a shot in a wrestling match. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
The student has become the master. Very interesting. Tamari, I'm going to come back to you. With a sport like this, I can imagine that wrestling poses a lot of challenges and a lot of difficulties that you'd have to get through. What has been the toughest part of wrestling, and how do you push through it?
Honestly, the toughest part could be mental because there's sometimes where I can't do this, I can't do that. But really, honestly, if you just don't think about the mental part, you can get through it. Your body is just shutting you down. There's times where I didn't want to do something, I knew I couldn't win or stuff like that, but that didn't show me or make me give up in something. There's also times where you lost, but then you didn't have any faith in yourself later on. But it really showed me how my mentality grew from wrestling, and it showed how I pretty much grew up and learned that even if something happens, I don't have to give up and to continue trying my hardest.
That's a very good outlook. There's always something to be gained from every single match, even the ones that don't always go your way. So I really love hearing that outlook. Very mature. And one more quick question before we let you guys go. I'm sure people are going to be watching this and they're going to be inspired to join the wrestling team themselves. What advice could you offer people who are interested in partaking in this sport?
Honestly, I think it's an amazing sport to continue doing. I started doing it having doubts in myself, didn't think I would get the ropes of it. But when I first continued, it became a really loving sport to me. I love this sport a lot, especially with my team. It builds confidence and relationship and mentally a good sportsmanship. I honestly believe you'd get the ropes of it really soon. It's basically, you just gotta learn the basics in the beginning. It's a nice sport to do. Honestly, I honestly think anyone should try. It's a really good sport to try.
You never know until you try it. Andrew, what do you think?
It's hard to top that answer because I think Tamari touched it perfectly. It's accessible to all people, age, weight, size. It's great. We have weight classes for everyone. I would really say it shows Tamari's maturity that at a young age she already knows the biggest thing I think the sport gives you is self-confidence and self-growth. And whether you're good or bad, I think everyone should try wrestling because once you step on the mat, you test yourself on a different level than you've tested yourself before. And just surviving one practice gives you a lot of confidence going back to the classroom and interacting with your friends. And then you have a lot of camaraderie in wrestling because it is a challenging sport. You're beating each other up all practice, and then you're going out to dinner and eating together afterward. So just imagine that.
It is a very challenging sport, but you guys have made it look easy. Congratulations once again to all of your success. Can't wait to see what's to come in the future. Andrew, Tamari, thank you both for joining us today on The Splash Live.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Really love hearing about a sport that you don't hear talked about as often as you hear about football, baseball, basketball, all those sports. So once again, congratulations to the wrestling team for all their success. Can't wait to see what's to come in the future. Yesterday was Paczki Day here in Greater West Bloomfield, which means people everywhere were celebrating the beloved Polish holiday by chowing down on delicious paczki. And that fun tradition made its way over to Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I had the chance to attend their Paczki Day celebrations and heard from Anya and Maria Biachuk of the Polish Institute of Culture and Research to hear why this holiday is so important for them and the students.
So on this wonderful Paczki Day, we've seen hectic, but a good hectic. You know, we have different flavors of strawberry, raspberry, and custard. The kids coming in, you know, I feel like this is a great way to bridge the culture of, you know, first step in, because Orchard Lake was founded by Polish priests, to have that extension of the culture, the heritage of, you know, this is a little taste of that, and it's been great. It's been a good controlled hectic.
What have you seen from the students as they've enjoyed the paczkis?
What we've seen is curiosity and you know, they ask, you know, what's the correct pronunciation, what flavors there are, and you know, and just conveying that, you know, it's a donation from the Institute, and we're happy to continue that tradition.
Although the treats were delicious, Anya Biachuk of the Polish Institute of Culture and Research reminded everyone that there's more to take away from today than just the delicious food.
You come in, you're learning all day long, you come in for lunch, and there's a sweet treat waiting for you. It's pretty exciting, but also it's a good opportunity to start asking questions. You know, what does this holiday stand for? Its history, when did it get started? And so this sort of snowballs into really meaningful conversations. And these kids, they remember this day. We've been doing it for the last few years. It's a really unique tradition that we have here on campus. Kids, they look forward to it. They say, you know, is it happening? Depending on the student's winter break. You know, we're thankful because of Polish tradition. We have a little bit of flexibility. In Poland, Fat Tuesday is actually celebrated on Fat Thursday. Because of the student's winter break, we're celebrating it today here on U.S. standards as Fat Tuesday. But just genuine excitement, happiness, and curiosity about the day. We always laugh. We always say, oh, PSA, right? It's a public service announcement. On the day of Fat Tuesday, we say paczki is plural, pączek is singular. You know, it's just exciting. It's a good time, and this is one of those core memories that is really embedded in these students' minds, and we're just thankful to be a part of it.
Smiling faces and full tummies everywhere you look. Everyone was having such a blast at the Paczki Day celebrations at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and I got in on the fun too. I certainly had my share of paczkis. In case anyone's wondering, I am a raspberry guy. That is my favorite, and all the paczkis were delicious. So big thank you to Orchard Lake St. Mary's for allowing me to stop by and to see all these celebrations firsthand. In the news, people are still concerned over the recent air traffic near collisions that have been taking place recently, including a near miss between a private jet and a Southwest Airlines plane that happened last Tuesday morning in Chicago. We recently spoke with West Bloomfield pilot Joe Cook to hear his thoughts on these recent aviation incidents and if residents should be concerned if they're about to take to the skies. We have local pilot Joe Cook joining us right now on The Splash. Joe, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to have you with us and happy to be getting into this very, very important conversation with all of the recent news surrounding these air traffic mishaps. What has your reaction been to everything you've seen?
Well, there's been a string of accidents that have been very highly publicized, but we have to keep in context just how rare these accidents really are. There was the accident, the mid-air collision over the Potomac, which, unfortunately resulted in the loss of 60 lives. But prior to that, the last fatal event in a commercial airline was back in 2019 when one person was killed on a Alaska flight that overran the runway. And then prior to that, I believe it was 2012, there was a regional turboprop crash in Boston, which resulted in a loss of life. And it also resulted in significant changes in training regulations through the FAA and sleep regulations, that sort of thing. So I know these kind of events concern people, and rightfully so, but they're news splashes, and I think they should be kept in context with the fact that while we're having this several-minute conversation, there's probably been 5,000 airplanes take off and land around the world, and it happens every hour without any incident.
That's certainly right. These incidents are very rare, and it's just surprising to see so many of them publicized in this way. Do you think the reason that so many are being publicized right now is because it's because of the initial incident and it's just becoming more and more common to talk about?
Certainly. After the crash over the Potomac, then there was the Delta incident at Reagan, and then there was that midair out in Arizona, and certainly the midair in Arizona probably wouldn't even got national coverage if it hadn't been for the concern that's going on over aviation safety right now. It's a news cycle, and people want to hear it, and that's not to minimize whatsoever the tragic events that have happened. But
of course,
if you look at the DOT information, Department of Transportation information, your chance of dying in an aircraft accident are about, let's say, I wrote it down here, 1 in 13.7 million, which if you're the one is, unfortunate, but it's certainly the safest way to travel. If you compare it to driving, 95% of the transportation fatalities that happen throughout the year happen driving. About 1% over a long period of time happen in aviation. It's clearly the safest way to fly. I've been flying small airplanes for 50 years, and I'm currently training pilots out at Troy Airport there at Coolidge at 15, and I've got over 3 million miles on Delta, so I'm in those airplanes quite a bit, and I'm not concerned about it. I'm taking my 8-month-old daughter to Philadelphia next month on a commercial flight on Delta, and I wouldn't be doing it if I felt there was a risk.
That's absolutely right. You have a lot of experience in this world of air traffic control and with piloting planes. And as a commercial pilot who sometimes flies around other jets in the air, what is the protocol for navigating shared airspace?
Well, the key word there is that it's shared airspace. A guy landing at Pontiac or Metro or anywhere else in a 4-seat Cessna has got the same right to be doing that as Delta, A330 or something. Now, from a practical standpoint, most pilots, if they're just going to go out and practice shooting landings, aren't going to go to Metro. They're going to go to maybe Pontiac or Flint, something like that. But as far as the communication that they use between ground control and the tower and center and the various type of communication outlets that pilots use, everybody's got the same right to be there, and they do mix, and they mix well. And most guys that are flying small airplanes are aware of the fact that the logistics and the requirements for 737 are different than for a Cessna 172, and they take that into consideration when they're planning their flights and where they're going to go. Generally, if I flew a small airplane back from Florida last week, and I made a point of making my stops at smaller non-towered airports rather than going into Atlanta or Chattanooga or somewhere like that.
Yes, very interesting information and good to have this perspective. And I would imagine, because I'm certainly not a pilot, I would imagine being in that situation as you're flying that plane and hearing all these multiple perspectives as you're navigating the air, it can be a bit challenging. What is it like to be managing all of these things at once as you're operating commercial aircraft?
If somebody that isn't involved in aviation tunes into one of the internet sites where you can hear aircraft communications, either from ground or tower or center, it can sound, yes, very confusing. And how could anybody ever understand what they're saying? But if you're an experienced pilot and you've flown in that kind of airspace before, when you're contacted by air traffic control, ATC, you kind of anticipate what they're going to say. And so you kind of know what to expect. And if there's confusion, then you tell them to repeat or to clarify, and nobody's going to criticize you for doing that or think that you're not a smart pilot. If there's any confusion, they certainly want you to make that known. For example, that it was that on this recent Midway situation, the aircraft that caused the incursion was what's called a fractional jet, a small business jet that people could rent by the hour, basically. He was leaving the spot where he picked up his passengers, got his taxi clearance, and you get that from what's called ground control. They're controlling all the movement of the airplanes on the ground. And there was some confusion about it, and he asked for a clarification. The ground controller gave him the proper clarification, but he didn't do what he was told to do. He was told to taxi. At Midway, they have parallel runways like many airports. So he was told to taxi past runway 31L, 31 left, and hold short of 31 center where the Southwest plane was landing. And he just didn't do it. He taxied straight across. It was just, he was distracted or he didn't understand. It's kind of hard to say it. I'm sure as they're researching the communication, they will be able to determine that. What I think I would like to add to that is the real kudos should go to the Southwest pilots on this, because go-arounds are not particularly unusual. But typically what will happen is, because you can only have one airplane on the runway at a time. So even if a guy's at the end of the runway and about ready to turn off, if he's not completely off the runway, the other airplane can't land. So what will typically happen is maybe the guy that's already on the runway is slow getting off the runway, or the guy coming in is coming in a little fast, and they have to have a certain amount of separation. The tower will tell the approaching airplane to take off and go around, just come around the pattern once and land again. In this case, it was the Southwest pilots that initiated the go around. So they saw that there was an incursion. They saw this guy was across the runway in front of them. So without being directed by the tower, they just initiated the go around. So they were on their toes. And because in that segment of flight, it's very easy to be, directed at what you're doing and looking at your instruments and preparing for the landing, but they were keeping their spatial orientation intact. They saw the airplane and they did the go around and saved a possible tragedy.
That's absolutely right. Those Southwest pilots were heroes and did the absolute right thing in helping get that plane to land safely. And Joe, you have a lot of experience with commercial planes, but you also have experience flying seaplanes, and those can be very different. What are some of the biggest differences in operating seaplanes and operating commercial airlines?
Well, when you're operating, I own an amphibious aircraft, which I probably have annoyed some people over on Walled Lake and Orchard Lake by practicing. I go over there and practice landings. The difference is when you're landing like out of Troy Airport or Pontiac Airport, you're taking off on a runway that's not changing. It's concrete, and you're taking off the same runway every time you go. Where when you're landing on a lake or any body of water, the water is different. The wind's coming from different directions. It's causing ripples. It's causing various waves from boats and from the wind itself. And the other concern always is that at an airport, you pretty much know and you can see very well who's on the runway or who's approaching the runway, or if you're landing at a controlled field, they're going to tell you who's approaching the runway and if you're cleared to land. When you're landing on a lake, you've got paddle boarders and other boats and although, a lot of other activity. So it can be a bit more challenging making sure that everything's safe. But the actual operation of the airplane, once you're off the ground, it flies pretty much like any other airplane. It's one of those airplanes you can land on the water more than once.
Well, it's very fascinating to hear about all of these differences, and very fascinating to hear about your perspective on these recent mishaps that have happened all across America. Joe, one more quick question before we let you go. What are some of the biggest safety perspectives that people can look at with observing these recent mishaps?
Well, I think they should keep in mind that statistically, clearly, aviation is the safest way to fly. You're much more inclined to be in a car accident than you are in an aircraft accident. I read one statistic one time that if the day you were born, if you flew every minute while you were alive, you'd be involved in an aircraft accident when you were 54 years old. So it would be nice if we could say that absolutely, you get on an airplane, you're going to get where you want to go without having any problems. That's probably not realistic, but certainly people should not be apprehensive about getting on an airplane due to the recent and well-publicized string of aviation events that have occurred. And again, if one that happens is a tragedy, and we hate to see it happen, but the reality of our life and our world is that sometimes things are going to happen, and it's unfortunate. But always keep in mind that the pilot is the guy that's making the guy in the left seat is the guy that's making the ultimate decision. And if there's an accident, he's going to be the guy that gets there first. So he wants to make sure that it's going to be a safe flight.
Very reassuring words. Joe Koch, we thank you so much for your time and joining us today on the Splash Live.
Thank you.
Appreciate Joe for his words and for hopefully putting a lot of people at ease who are making plans to be hitting the skies very, very soon. Hopefully this will put their minds at ease and will make them feel a lot better about flying. March is Reading Month and also Women's History Month, celebrating the impact of women authors like India Canty on children's literature. Her books like The Magical Shell showcase Black and world culture to inspire young readers. And Indea is joining us right now on the Splash Live right now. Indea, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really good. Happy to have you with us. We learned a little bit about you at the recent Black Expo just a few weeks ago.
Yes.
What inspired you to write children's books? I want to get into that.
My inspiration was my daughter. I never had set out to be an author or to be a writer or anything, but through just raising my young daughter and finding out that she was delayed in speech, finding out that she needed extra attention when it came to reading, when it came to word recognition and developing language, put me on this path of being a writer.
Wow, it's always things like that put you on a path that you never realized you were going to take in the first place. And
I never guessed I would have been an author, never desired it. And through reading the books that were recommended for speech development, I realized there was no storylines that we could connect to and no characters that we could relate to either. And I said, why don't I just write my own books? And I did.
Well, you're already off to an incredible start. Your book, The Magical Shell, won a 2023 Book Fest Award. Congratulations for that. Can you tell us about that story and what that recognition meant to you personally?
So I published my book December 2022. So it was mid-December, and by the time spring came along the next year, I said, why don't I just send it in and see if it'll win an award? I know my book is award worthy. And of course, social media somehow read my brain. I don't know how it does that, the algorithm, and it sent me the Book Fest Awards. So I said, this is weird. And I said, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll submit my book there. I submitted my book there and I said, actually, let me submit my books to several places because I know I'm going to get an award. I just knew I was going to get an award on this book. I submitted it to 7 places, and 4 out of the 7 places recognized my book. The first one was the Book Fest Award, and they sent me an email saying, hey, your book won an award. And I was just like, wait a minute, I just sent it in. Is this a joke? I almost didn't believe it because it happened so easily. I'm like, does it happen this easily? And then I just got another email indie authors, and another one, Book Excellence. And I'm like, this is like so bizarre that all these places are saying, hey, your book is being recognized. It won second place, it won third place, it won runner up. And it was just like, okay, God, this is confirmation that this is exactly what you want me to be doing. I am on the right path, and nothing is going to stop me.
You certainly are on the right path. That is incredible, hearing about that path to get that award. And you're doing it with such incredible books, which are showcasing such diverse characters and cultures in literature. Why is it so important to be highlighting these different cultures and characters?
Well, I think it's a great idea. Not only, so boys there's not a lot of stories written about boys. And when it comes to African American boys, melanated boys, that's even less books representing those boys. So I have a daughter, and I said, let me make my first book about a boy, The Magical Shell. A book that everybody can relate to. It doesn't matter if you are a girl, it doesn't matter if you are a boy, it doesn't matter what your race or nationality is. Everybody can relate to just being young, fun, and adventurous, wanting to be at the beach, wanting to be in the water, wanting to discover the ocean animals. So I created little Johnny in The Magical Shell, and I said, it doesn't matter who reads this book, they'll be able to identify with this person, his personality, his character, his imagination, and everybody's going to fall in love with him. And I thought that was really important to do, especially now, right, with everything that's going on right now.
Well, everyone is falling in love with little Johnny, and they are loving the book. For those just joining us right now, we have Indea Canty, a West Bloomfield author, joining us right now on the Splash Live for March Reading Month and Women's History Month. And Indea, you emphasize positive affirmations and well-being in your work. How do those themes shape the stories that you create?
I feel like it's important to allow children to discover who they are based on who God says they are. So building up their confidence and their faith at a young age before they enter into the world and before they start believing what other people say they are, or identifying with what other people think that they are or who they are. So I developed activity books and storylines that help children be able to just be more comfortable with self-discovery and affirming faith and affirming confidence. So I developed I See God. This has affirmations in it. It has prompts. It has journaling. And it will allow anybody at any age, whether you're a child, adult, teenager, to be able to start focusing on who they want to be in a more positive way and making it happen in reality.
I like that. You're reaching out to not just the children, but also that there's something in there for the adults. That's really, really important. And hearing about everything that you're doing and this path that you're on, I'd imagine that there are several female authors and figures who have helped to inspire your writing journey. Can you list some of those?
So I never set out to be an author or a writer. So I never had somebody that I looked to inspire the journey. But since I've been on the journey, Miss Rowland, the author of Harry Potter, has been a huge inspiration. I do wish to make The Magical Shell into a movie eventually. And I look at her story and think about where she started and how, just like that, she was able to have her books made into a movie. And I'm just like, wow, that is a huge inspiration for me.
That's certainly right. Her books came a very long way. And I'm glad that you just touched upon the future for books like The Magical Shell, how you want to maybe turn it into a movie one day. And I want to ask, beyond writing, do you have plans to expand into other outlets, like maybe audiobooks or other forms of visual storytelling?
Yes, I plan on coming out with YouTube, so a YouTube series for multiple books. I wrote 9 children's books. So right now, the future of my business is to not only publish those books, but to turn Magical Shell into an audiobook and turn it into a series on YouTube, and to look to find out where can this be made into a movie. So Magical Shell, I See God, and a couple of other books that I have in mind will be on YouTube. The Magical Shell will be a series, so there'll be a couple other books that are written about little Johnny. I See God is also going to be a series, and the books that I wrote about my daughter is going to be a series. So those are the 3 books that I want to turn into series on YouTube, audiobooks, and then as far as movies, specifically The Magical Shell.
Wow, it's incredible to hear about all of these great plans you have coming up. We are running short on time, and Dea, I have one more quick question before we wrap things up. For parents who are looking to encourage their kids to read a little more, what advice would you give to make books and storytelling a bigger part of their lives?
Buy the books, take them to the library, let them pick out whatever book they want to read, get them surrounded by books, and just make it a daily habit to read every day. It becomes more about the quality of time that's spent and what you guys are discussing more than reading, and that's kind of what helps develop the love of reading. It's the conversation within the books. It's the different storylines you get to talk about. It's the one-on-one time. So it's really about the whole experience rather than just the reading. So make sure when you do the reading, you create a nice experience around it as well.
That's right. Make it a very immersive experience for the kids. That's such great information and great advice. And Dea, thank you so much for joining us today here on The Splash Live.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you with us and glad to hear about all of your future projects. Can't wait to see what's to come with all of them. But that's going to do it for us today here on The Splash Live. I want to say a big thank you to all of our guests for stopping by today, for Tyler Kieft, Kevin McIntosh, and Calvin Brown for their work at Master Control. I've been your host, Jake Schaff. Live, local, social. It's The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.